Jess Reid. You may know her as the Keto Fit over on Instagram. Had you on my podcast, what was it, last year? And
Yeah.
talked a lot about different things
Emotional
regarding, like,
eating.
what's that?
We talked about emotional eating.
Emotional eating, exactly.
Hmm.
And so you're so good at this mindset stuff, Jess, that I just had to get you to come back
Thank you.
because a lot of people are very interested in changing behaviors like eating sugar
Hmm.
or like going to exercise or any behavioral change that they're looking for. But the problem is they don't know that in order to get there, they have to like dig deeper and figure out
Yeah.
why do they do those things? What is the belief system that's in place? So why don't we kind of start there? What is it about beliefs that people are so hard-nosed and they dig in their heels? This is what I believe. I'm not changing.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, what a loaded question that is. So I think we should kind of maybe start with like just kind of a description of what our beliefs and where do they come from and how are they incorporated into our
Yeah.
behavior? How does it all start
Yeah.
to have that domino effect? So basically, we can kind of think of ourselves as just like multi-layered people. So maybe like an onion is a really good metaphor. So look around at your life and the what you're experiencing, your reality currently is the results of in your life. That's what you're experiencing, and that's what other people can see on the outside is your results. And so the layer right below that is your behavior, right? And so we just think, change my behavior, get a different result. A plus B equals C, right? Absolutely true. Yes. And so this is where most people stop, though. They just stay at the level of change my behavior to get a different belief. I just need to break this habit. I just need to change this habit. I just need a little bit more willpower. I need a little bit more motivation. I need a little bit more discipline. But it seems like, why doesn't that last, right? Maybe I just need a little bit more information. I'll listen to another sermon. I'll listen to another podcast. I'll read another book, whatever it might be. But all of that just seems to be so short lived because it falls a little short from actually getting down to the core of who we are. So, what influences our behavior is our thoughts and our feelings. And what ultimately influences our thoughts are our beliefs. And our beliefs are the very bottom layer, the core of who we are, the center of the onion. And so, in order to actually change our behavior long term, not just temporary behavior modification, but actually true transformation from the inside out. And, we've seen this, seen this in other people's lives. There are transformation stories. It really can happen. Why isn't it happening for us? It's probably because we haven't actually gotten down to the actual beliefs that are causing us to self sabotage.
Well, and here's the problem. I don't think a lot of people know why they believe what they believe. They just
Yeah.
believe it. They've always believed it. They've been set in their ways. And
Yep.
then you challenge them on it. Well, what's that about? Where's that from? Oh no, just believe it. And it's
Yep.
that is part of the sabotage here
Yeah.
is people believe things that they don't know why they believe them. And I will make the argument that a lot of the reasons why they believe those things is somebody in their life influential,
Yeah.
either through force, through trauma, or just very influential in their lives, told them this
Yeah.
belief, and then they just took it on carte blanche without any vetting it out.
You're so right. And let's just reframe that a little bit also through a lens of self compassion because you're right. Most of our beliefs we've just inherited. Like we didn't actually choose them. It's just that all of our beliefs, in fact, most of our beliefs are actually formed between the ages of 0 and 7 when our brains are just being hardwired, right? That's the most formidable time in our lives. And we're not consenting adults. We don't know what the heck is going on. We're just literally getting this worldview poured into us kind of just based on chance. Like, where were you born? Who are your parents? What is your culture? All of these things. And that's being poured into you and it gets cemented into your beliefs. And most people actually never change them. They never think to question them. They just accept it. Like you said, carte blanche, this is universal truth and everybody else is wrong. Anything else is wrong if it challenges your belief system. But we need to have a little bit of compassion for ourselves that number one, we didn't choose these things. And number two, it is actually really, really scary to try to change your beliefs. Because in order to change your beliefs, there is quite a bit of wrestling that needs to take place, which is the authority figures in my life were wrong
Yes.
and they hurt me. Maybe
Yes.
not, maybe not intentionally, but the impact is still there nonetheless. And also, there's so much risk to changing your belief because we all have that need for tribalism, a sense of community and
Yes.
belonging. What are we going to lose? So, anytime we're having trouble actually adjusting a belief, a really good question to ask ourselves is, how is holding onto this belief still benefiting me? Because it is.
Yeah, and I think people are very happy being in tribes.
Yeah.
And I've seen it in the online world. I've been out here a million years, it feels like, and I've seen the tribes form. Oh,
Yeah.
well, I'm paleo. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm keto. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
carnivore. And I think a lot of that tribalism is a belief system. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. Finding your people. I found you because you call yourself the Keto Fit. So it's like it's a good thing that you kind of go into tribes and have belief systems that unite you. I think where the problem comes into play is where you must fit within this box of what this belief system is, or you're no longer a part of the club. And I've
Yeah.
seen that quite a bit where the diet camps kind of like say, no, this is the right way to do keto. This is the right way to do carnivore. And
Yeah.
there is no right way when everybody makes their own choices about what's best for them.
Yes, you're so right. And we don't just see it with diet, we see it with absolutely everything. We see it with religion, we see it with politics, we see it with cultural norms,
Yeah.
everything. Because anything that is not what you believe can feel like a threat
Yes.
to you. And so you do actually need to have somewhat of a sense of safety in order to be willing to change your beliefs. And we need to have a sense of curiosity. We need to have a sense of play. I don't know about you, Jimmy. I think we have a similar background. Like we were both kind of like brought up in a Christian environment. I think we even share the same Christian college background and everything. And so it was hardwired into me that beliefs are a battleground.
Yeah.
Like we're in a war, we're in a spiritual war, everything is war, right? And so I've made a massive shift in my life. It took a long time, but I made a shift in my life from beliefs are a battleground to beliefs are a playground. And it's okay to try on different beliefs. And I'm not saying change your values, keep your values, right? But there are multiple different beliefs that you could try on and just ask yourself, not is this true or is this false, but is this helping me or is this harming me? And it's true that there's going to be something helpful about it and also something harmful. And which is more?
And what is authentically you? Like that's the journey I've been on the last few years myself, been writing very vocally about it, doing reels and all kinds of things online,
Mm-hmm.
of who am I?
Yeah.
Because when you start challenging beliefs, you do chip away at that kind of formation of what you think you are and who you
Yeah.
think you actually are. But once you start, like you said, peeling back the layers of the onion a bit, you kind of go, whoa, that
Yeah.
belief system has just been there, but I never really kind of bought into it. Now, this is the real me. And of course, all the outside goes, oh my gosh, you've
Yeah.
changed so much. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, I'm actually living in my true authenticity for the first time in my life.
It's so true. And that really is such a journey of self love and self acceptance. I heard this beautiful quote, and it said, to love yourself long term is to attend 1,000 funerals of the person you used to be.
Yes.
And to love somebody else long term is the same thing, to attend 1,000 funerals of the person they used to be. We have to allow ourselves to evolve and adapt throughout life. We have to allow the people that we love to evolve and adapt throughout life. Otherwise, we get to our deathbed, and the top regret of dying people is, I wish I lived a life more true to myself, not the one that other people expected of me.
And it's
Yeah.
exhausting, Jess. It's
Yeah.
so exhausting.
Mm.
Okay, who am I supposed to be to so and so? Okay, I got to be them to that. And then over here, okay. And then you tiptoe around them trying to remember all the little things that you have told them about the
Mm.
version of who you are, not the real you. It, it's stressful. And we
Yeah.
wonder why we don't want to change. We don't want to
Yeah.
change because that's a lot of stuff to deal with.
Yeah, it is stressful to keep that up, but it also is serving a purpose. And that's why we have to, again, return to that lens of self compassion. That's called our ego. And all of us learn that in childhood. When we're very young, my daughter's still 5. She doesn't really have this yet. She's just starting to get there. Like this idea of like, who do people want me to be? What role do I need to play? What mask do I need to wear in order to get my needs met? My needs for love, my needs for safety and security, all of those things. We at some point in childhood learn those things, and then it becomes literally integral to our survival, or at least it feels that way to our brain. And when we're a child, it's true. Like we can't actually take care of ourselves. We do need to somewhat play a role and please other people, please our teachers, please our parents, raise our hand to go to the bathroom instead of just get up whenever we feel like it. And it gets conditioned and conditioned and conditioned. And unless we, become adults that have our own sense of safety, we will forever be living out that like childhood feeling of like, I need to get my needs met, just people please, do whatever I have to do to survive. And it is really challenging.
And I would argue that's the vast majority of the population. I
Yeah.
I so I find it hard to find people who are authentic these days, Jess, and from friends, and even like I'm looking for a girl in my life.
Yeah,
Finding somebody like that is so hard because there's
yeah,
people that put on a face, and I see it a little more clearly because I've done a lot of this work on my own belief system. I see when
yeah,
somebody's BSing me, and it's like,
yeah,
no, no, and I'll call them out on it like right
yeah,
away. And
yeah,
people are just like, "Oh no, don't shine a light on me. I'm
yeah.
supposed to be fooling you."
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. We all do it in some way, shape, or form. And some of us are further along on the journey than others. I know you've done a ton of personal healing work and trauma work, and I have too. And it is a journey. We will always continue to uncover beliefs or uncover things about ourselves that are making us uncomfortable, little lies that we're still believing that we're just like, ooh, yeah, this is holding me back. And what am I going to do about this? It's gonna feel scary to try to let that go. But it's also scary to think, what if I never let this go? What will the impact of that be?
Take supplements and wonder if they're doing anything for you? Specifically, do you know your mineral levels? Wouldn't it be great if you knew what you were absorbing, what you are not absorbing or have too little of, and what you have too much of? All of this seems very complicated, but it's really very simple. Thanks to our friends at Upgraded Formulas, they have a very special upgraded hair test kit, which will test your minerals and other things in your hair, and you get a consultation with it as well to see exactly which minerals you are most deficient in. Upgraded Formulas has a stabilized nano minerals technology. I've been telling you about their magnesium that's been helping me with my sleep. Now they have a full line of products along with this upgraded hair test kit that you need to find out what your mineral content is. Again, upgradedformulas.com, and you can get 15% off of your entire order using the coupon code Jimmy at checkout. Upgraded Formulas. Well, and let's go there. Let's talk
Yeah.
about people who refuse to change their beliefs. What is the price they pay? Because they pay a pretty hefty price
Yeah.
for holding on to beliefs that aren't their own. They never really change their behavior. They need to get to a greater place in their life because that's the fulfillment of their heart and their mind and everything about who they are.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to those people who say, life is what it is. I'll just keep
Yeah.
being what I am?
Yeah. I mean, it's a mediocre life, right? It's the life where you get to the end of your life and you're at your deathbed and you're filled with regret. But in the meantime, even before then, forget about fast forward, future me seems so far off. What about today me? What
Yeah.
about the me every day at the end of my day, numbing out from a life that I'm unhappy with? I'm filled with bitterness and frustration and resentment and fear and anger and all of these things. I'm exhausted. I'm sacrificing myself and putting myself on the back burner for everybody else. And what am I doing? I'm numbing. I'm self soothing with food, with alcohol, with online shopping, with whatever vice may have you. And you feel completely out of integrity and you
Yeah.
feel stuck.
You just called out a whole bunch of people that are addicted to Amazon Prime. So
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's a thing. Yeah.
I have a friend in my life right now who just confessed that to me. They're like, Jimmy, I kind of have a problem. I'm shopping as my addiction. And I'm like, okay, what are we talking about? A few $100s a week. I'm like, yeah, that's a problem. That's a big problem. So
Yeah, we all do this. We hop from one maladaptive self-soothing skill to another that feels a
yeah.
little bit less maladaptive. Like maybe it was food and it's like, okay, now I'm doing the keto thing and so I
Right.
switched to alcohol. Or okay, now I realize that alcohol is actually holding me back, so I switched to online shopping. Like, yeah, it happens all the time.
Well, and we justify it because, oh, it's stuff I need for the house, it's stuff for the
Yeah,
kids, stuff for the, and it's like, no, it's just stuff. It's stuff you
yeah,
don't need. So
yeah, yeah. But it lights up the brain,
it
it gives us that ding that we need.
So does going on a walk. So does
Mhm.
jumping in an ice bath, for example, like what
Yeah.
I've been doing. So does a lot of things.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's, I know that you're passionate about that. And I am too, about helping my clients expand their self soothing toolkit. It's not wrong to self soothe. We need to self soothe. But what happens is self sabotage is when you're self soothing in a way that's actually harming you.
And so people choose those harmful ones willfully when there are non-harmful ones out there. What's up with that? What's going on there?
Yeah. I mean, I think some of it is like a lack of information or a lack of ever being taught proper, not proper, but helpful self-soothing skills, right? So like think about maybe the emotional intelligence or the emotional capacity or regulation that your parents had or your caregivers had or your teachers had and the generation that you grew up in, right? So we're becoming a lot more conscious in today's day and age, thankfully, for more helpful mechanisms like you've mentioned, like ice baths or grounding or tapping or breathing or whatever. But journaling, yeah, exactly. There's so many that are available to us. Yoga, but I grew up in the 1980s. Maybe yoga started in the 1990s, and everybody's like, "What is this woo-woo business?" Right? And like now, it's tapping or whatever it might be. But we're evolving. We're learning more self-soothing skills that are helpful, but they're nothing new. They're actually pretty ancient. It's just resurfacing, thankfully. But yeah, I think a lot of it is that we were never taught anything. We just kind of model whatever it is that we saw our parents do to cope. And usually it's lashing out with anger. It's not actually doing anything helpful. We just kind of end up monkey see, monkey do, and not to just kind of boil it down simply. Yeah.
And I love that you mentioned that it's kind of a lack of knowledge. I think one of the most basic things that people can use to calm themselves, soothe themselves in the midst of all the stresses of the world and all the everything is your breath. Like
Yeah.
just that's why I loved yoga, because it taught me focus on the breath. And now getting in the ice baths, that first 90 seconds is all just getting through it. And it's
Yeah.
like, this is so easy, guys,
Yeah.
and it can do so much to change, like even the wiring in your brain,
Mm-hmm.
about how you feel. It's amazing. If you're not being conscientious of your breath, not constantly, you're
Yeah.
gonna breathe anyway, but to be like deliberate about
Yeah.
and letting that go. I don't think enough people even do that basic.
Yeah. You're right. And I think that one thing that we kind of have been failed in a certain area is the somatic aspect of needing to self-regulate. So it has to do with the nervous system. It has to do with the body, not just our thoughts. Our thoughts are important, but when you are in a stressed out, activated fight or flight state, you cannot thought work your way out of that. You cannot journal your way out of that. Your
No.
brain compels you to eat because that actually helps your nervous system to switch states. That's why you go from fight or flight. They call the parasympathetic the rest and digest. And
Yes.
so there's literally a physiological benefit to you emotionally eating. We talked about this a little bit in our last episode, but there are other ways in your body to get that same type of somatic release or switching states. And so for you, like the ice bath or the breathing, that is a body-based way to actually help yourself get what you need to self-soothe. Yeah.
Have you done any work with cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT? Is that
Yes. Yes, and I think that it has its place. I just think that it has to be holistic. I think we've stressed so much the mind work, and I love mindset work. That's what I do. I'm a coach, but I can very much tell when my clients don't need a journal prompt. They need to physiologically switch states first. It's like when your kid is having a tantrum. Like I learned this as a parent. Like you can't actually parent your kid, like reason with them when they're having a tantrum.
no?
They can't listen. They're in their amygdala. They're in their fight or flight state. The first thing that you have to do is help them regulate. So you have to co-regulate with them. I give my daughter a hug. I get down on her level on the floor. I give her a hug. I say, let's breathe together. And we breathe together until she calms down. I can't tell her, like, reason with her until she's finally calmed down. And we have to
Yes.
do the same thing with ourselves.
I'm imagining all those people that get upset in stores, like the Karens out there. Just all go give them a big hug, and it's gonna be
Yeah,
okay. And then you can
yeah,
reason with them. But when
that's
they're all riled
true.
up, no.
I know. Instead you see parents and they don't know. They just don't, they're really just embarrassed, and then they're operating in their amygdala. So then they're screaming at their kid because they're embarrassed, and they're like, knock it off, or that's what you get, or blah 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 blah. And like that doesn't help. It's completely not helpful. They're still unregulated. They can't listen to you.
And then they're stressing out everybody around them. So it's just not good.
Yeah.
They're all in their sympathetic nervous system. They can't rest and digest at that point.
We all are so often. Yeah, that's the pandemic. We are all in fight or flight just way too much. Yeah.
Yes. So let's apply this to food, because a
Mhm.
lot of people that follow me and you, this is it. And by the way, I love that you're a coach that goes here,
Yeah.
because so many coaches, and we need them, teach the knowledge about the
Yep.
diet, teach the knowledge about some of the physiology, the insulin response, blood sugar response,
Yep.
inflammation, all that kind of thing. But if you don't get to the heart of your belief about why you think you need that chocolate covered donut with the sprinkles on top, then you're never
Yep.
going to change your behavior. And so,
Yep.
how do you broach that subject? Do you start with the mind when you start coaching clients and then work your way as to how it applies to food at that point? Or do you kind of mix it both simultaneous? How do you teach that?
Yeah, that's so good. And thank you for pointing that out. And I just have so much love and respect for all of my colleagues in the space who have so much more training in like they're trained nutritionists, dietitians, holistic practitioners, all of those things. I knew that I wanted to become a weight loss coach. And I knew that I wanted to get way more training as a life coach than actually in nutrition training. Because I firmly believe that it's not that we don't know what to do. It's not a lack of information. It's a lack of motivation. You can Google everything for free. And I'm not diminishing what the educators are doing. I think it's so valuable to work with
Yeah.
somebody to get all of the information that you need in one place and to get the accountability and all of those things. That's so valuable because it can be overwhelming, right? There's so many different opinions on this is the right way to keto and this is the wrong way to keto and all of that. But I knew that the niche that I really wanted to go for was the mindset work.
Yeah.
Because for myself, that was my experience. And I think a lot of times we start to heal in the way that we wish we could have received healing, right? And so for me, it wasn't that I didn't know what to do. Some of it was. When I first discovered low carb as opposed to counting calories, I was like, what the heck? Why didn't anybody ever tell me about this? Right. So we do need the right information. We need the right strategies. But we also really need to, again, dig deeper below the surface. Like at a certain point, you do know all the information you need to know. And you're sitting there thinking, I know everything I'm supposed to do. Why am I just not doing it? And that's where we need to uncover the deeper stuff. So as a trained life coach, I have learned basically that fundamentally everybody is creative, resourceful, and whole. I hold all of my clients in the highest regard. The wisdom that they need is already inside of them. I'm just helping to draw it out. And it's absolutely incredible what happens when somebody just starts talking in a safe space and I'm reflecting back to them what they're saying. They're saying the answers right out loud. They're telling me all of the stuff that they were conditioned as a little kid and it's still stuck with them, right? They're telling me their life story. Of course, I ask about past history. How long have you struggled with your weight? What types of messages did you receive about food, weight, and body image? And you realize it's still holding you back. I was just talking with a client the other day and she was sharing basically about how, the first time she went on a diet, she was 9 years old. And I asked her, what's the first time that you felt shame about your body size or food or weight or body image? She was like 7, maybe younger. And
Yes.
she was compared to Aunt Sally. I'm going to change the name, but she was compared to Aunt Sally. And Aunt Sally was like easily over 100 pounds overweight. And nobody really respected Aunt Sally. Everybody thought that Aunt Sally was kind of, a failure, kind of really undisciplined. She wasn't held in high regard. But here is this little 7-year-old girl. Every time she goes to grab a second helping of food, they'll say, oh, she's just like Aunt Sally. Or, they come around family members, pinch your little cheeks. You look just like Aunt Sally. And so what do you receive about yourself when you're a child? This is so similar to what I went through, but there's something wrong with me. No matter what, I'm going to end up like Aunt Sally. It's kind of like my destiny. And so she takes that on. And in this area of her life, now she's 60 years old, still feeling like I'm a failure. No matter what I do, it's hopeless. It's pointless. All of these things. And these beliefs are so set in our subconscious. And
Yes.
unless we draw them out and start to question it, looking at it first through the lens of self-compassion, it can't be angry at yourself. It can't be judgmental towards yourself. A lot of us have self-awareness. We know where it came from, but we lack the self-compassion because we're like, and I need to get it together. And why can't I overcome this? So we're not actually seeing it through the lens of self-compassion first.
And this explains, Jess, why even after people have a weight loss success, they experience body dysmorphia. They
Yeah.
see themselves as that fat ant that
Mm-hmm.
everybody thought they were. And
Yeah.
even though physically in a mirror, you're looking back at that image, it's not the same. And I can tell you this personally myself, when I lost 180 pounds, I still felt fat in that
Yeah.
moment. And it was the
Yeah.
weirdest thing because it was the lowest I'd ever been in my adult life in weight. And yet I still
Yeah.
believed in my
Yeah.
head that I was that bigger person. And that's a big issue. And I'm sure you deal with that in the post weight loss for a lot of your clients too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Body dysmorphia is something that I struggled with as well. I was a fat kid and basically I reached a normal weight by the time I hit puberty through very disordered means, but I always saw myself as overweight the entire rest of my life and still until, I kind of discovered keto and started then having the mental energy or capacity to start to do some of this inner healing work. But yeah, my whole life I struggled with body dysmorphia. It's quite a thing that a lot of people are struggling with. And, we tend to think like, you're talking about how does this relate with food, like these limiting beliefs, there's so many of them. Another one that I hear all the time is, why can't I just eat normal and be skinny like everybody else?
Yeah.
And so here we are just like valuing body size above all else, but what we don't realize is even these people that are in a smaller body than you may not be healthy, may not be metabolically healthy, may not be even feeling good whatsoever. Their thoughts are consumed by food, like you don't actually know what's going on beneath the surface.
Yeah, and I saw a reel the other day that I thought was beautiful. It was all these women, and they were just flashing them on the screen, and they were basically wearing just like a bikini or whatever, and all of them were different sizes. And
Yeah.
then at the very end, it said, "Would you believe they're all the same weight?" And so it kind
Mm,
of hammered home of just because you view yourself as different than someone else doesn't mean that you're different in a bad way. We're all
yeah.
meant to be different and embrace the good parts about what you are. This is what upsets me as just someone online trying to encourage and inspire people is why put yourself down about one area that you supposedly have failed in, weight generally being the thing that people get upset about, but you forget about inflammation lowering and blood sugar stabilizing and mood stabilizing, and you feel good in your own skin, you got lots
Yeah.
of energy, all the good things that happen. Why do we throw all of that out the window? That's a belief that those things don't matter and only the weight matters. How
Mm.
do you how do you change that?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, with any belief that's holding us back, how do you change a belief that's holding you back? And I think it's through asking yourself a better set of questions. One of the things that attracted me the most to life coaching was this idea of we are all just one powerful question away from a transformation. It's literally just one mindset shift can change the rest of the course of your life. We've all had maybe we've all had it happen in one way, shape, or form. But yeah, one day you're listening to a sermon or you're listening to a podcast and something just clicks and you start thinking about it differently. What a beautiful gift in life that we have the ability to change our minds, that we truly can transform. And for those from a Christian faith, we believe like we're transformed by the renewing of our mind. And so it really does start with your mind. And your entire reality can change just by asking yourself a different question, just by looking at something in a totally different way than what you've been accustomed to looking at it before. And so I think asking yourself better questions. And before we wrap up today, I am going to share 4 questions with your audience that you can ask to go through any belief. But generally, I find, and this is helpful with yourself, but also with other people, because your brain is going to give you an answer to the question that you ask. So if you ask the question, why does this have to be so hard? Your brain is going to give you a list of reasons. If you ask your brain the question, what's wrong with me? Your brain's going to give you a list of answers to that question. But if you say, how can I overcome this? Or who does this sound like? Maybe it's not mine. Like you can start to loosen the grip that this has on you just by asking yourself a better set of questions. And this is helpful in your interactions with other people too. Don't ask why questions. It immediately puts people on defense. I've learned as a life coach, like, don't ever say why. Like, why do you say that? Or, why do you feel that way or whatever? Instantly people get defensive. It's much better to ask what questions or how questions.
And part of your beliefs is you mull them over in your head over and over and over and over again. Then you get reinforcement from
Yeah.
friends who you have chosen
Yeah.
because very likely they have that same belief that you have. So you get reinforcement externally. This is hard. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is an uphill battle trying to
Yeah.
shift that belief that's so firmly ingrained. And I've got one of those brains that when I think of things, I think and I think and I think over and over and over again. I can remember things from years ago and it just reverberates as if it's
Yeah.
happening right now. And so
Yeah.
that's difficult for people. And then they get the reinforcement from friends and outside forces that say, yeah, that belief is right. And like you
Yeah.
said, it's along religious lines, political lines, diet line. It goes across the board in all of
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that is how you establish a belief, is through rehearsal. Repetition is how you ingrain something into your brain, is through repetition. And so a lot of us, the repetition that has happened surrounding these beliefs wasn't chosen by us. Again, it was when we were a child and this message was kind of drilled into our heads, either explicitly or implicitly. And then what happens is once you form that belief, this is very interesting, and it's not woo woo, it's real. This is about neuroplasticity and neuroscience. There's actually a region of the brain that we can see on brain scans and detect it, and it is called the reticular activating system. And the reticular activating system is essentially your brain's filter. So we have so much stimuli coming in through our five senses all the time. We can't possibly pay attention to all of it and process all of it. It wouldn't serve us from a survival mechanism. So, and this is very illustrated by like the concept of tunnel vision. So as soon as you start to feel threatened, even more information gets deleted out of your attention span. So like, if there's like, somebody that looks like they're going to attack you in front of you down the street, you're not going to hear the birds tweeting in the background or whatever. Like literally, like you just get tunnel vision on that threat. And so
Right.
this is a great example of how the reticular activating system is serving to keep you safe. So it's blocking out information that it deems to be irrelevant, and it's placing front and center evidence that it thinks is relevant to you. Your brain is saying, pay attention to this. This is important. And so a way that we can actually change the brain is through priming our reticular activating system.
Yes.
So we can tell our brain what to pay attention to. And a really simple example is when we are maybe shopping for a new car. So let's just say that you want to buy a red sedan and you're looking up prices and you're comparing and all these things. And now you're driving down the street and all of a sudden you see red sedans everywhere. Like, oh my gosh, I never realized how many red sedans, everybody drives a red sedan. No, it's not that there are more red sedans than there used to be. It's that your brain is now showing them to you through your brain's filter because you've primed your brain to say, this is relevant. Pay attention to this now. So when people get so deeply entrenched in their beliefs, it's because your reticular activating system is always everywhere showing you examples that reinforce that belief. And it's literally deleting evidence that that belief could be wrong. It's blocking it out for you as a survival mechanism. So you actually have to have, first of all, a sense of safety, and then you need to prime your brain. So you need to like challenge yourself to look at different perspectives and different opinions. If it's something that you want to do, the first step is to just take a little bit of curiosity. And then once you prime your brain, if you're saying something like, oh, my life sucks, everything is so hard, then that's the lens that you're going to see everything in your day. But if you start your day with gratitude, like, oh, everything is abundant, I have blessings to me coming all the time, by the end of the day, you're going to have some examples of that being true. So it really is about priming your brain, and it's totally doable.
Have you experienced the dreaded keto flu? Did you know that most of these symptoms are actually due to your body dumping excess electrolytes? This is where Element comes in. Element is a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. That means lots of salt with no sugar. Element is formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs and is perfectly suited to folks following a keto, low-carb, or paleo diet. Element contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio, 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium, with none of the junk, no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, no BS. Everyone needs electrolytes, especially those on low-carb diets, or if you practice intermittent or extended fasting, if you're physically active, or sweat a lot. Add Element today and see how much better you feel and perform. Use the URL drinklmnt.com/Jimmy.
I love that concept, Jess. And I would even say a good healthy practice would be to constantly ask yourself what you believe and why you believe it, challenging your beliefs, not to say that they're wrong. You may end up saying, well, yeah, I still believe the same thing, but challenge it. Ask yourself, okay, why do I believe that? Has anything changed that has changed my mind about why or why I should not believe that? It just seems like a healthy practice that you can do internally. Obviously, you're not doing that with friends, like you said. Don't ask other people why you believe that. They're gonna feel threatened. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But if you yourself do that, I think it makes you a better human.
Yeah, it's true. But even with friends, like we do look around at the people in our lives, and maybe somebody who you do have a sincere friendship with, like true love and respect, and you have a sense of safety and security with that person, you do become a little bit more open-minded to the way in which they see the world. And
Yeah.
people can change their minds about things, but it doesn't happen sharply. Like it doesn't like it very rarely do you go from being, carnivore to vegan, for example, unless there's like, if it could be really crazy, fear-based, total, in your face manipulation. Yeah, some of that stuff, some of that propaganda can change your mind overnight, usually through fear is what happens. But generally, we move an inch at a time. We don't completely shift 180 degrees. We move 1 degree at a time when we're changing our minds about something, whether it's political, whether it's religious, whether it's, cultural, whatever, with people that we disagree with. And it's good to remember that the true is same with ourselves. We need to give ourselves a little bit of grace on that journey, realizing that we will probably move 1 degree at a time. We're not going to instantly change overnight.
And I'll tell you, I do have strong friendships like that where I know they have influenced me, not in a coercive way, but
Yeah.
in a, hey, this is what I believe. What do you think? And it's like, okay, I'd love and trust this person.
Yeah.
Let me kind of listen and do some research. Whereas if it was some rando on the internet and said, you idiot, you should just believe this. And yeah,
Yeah.
well, off. I'm not gonna
Exactly.
have a day. So the deliverer of that change in belief does matter. I hope vice versa, that I've influenced this person, and I know I have, and she has me. So it's like that's helpful when you know you've
Yeah.
got people in your life. But that's the context of it. It could be
Yeah.
the message from some random person or this person that care about and love sincerely. Which one's going to be more powerful at changing your belief? It's obviously that friend or loved one
Yeah.
that you feel very close to.
It's so true. And, we can apply that to ourselves in the way that we practice self-talk. Like a lot of us are talking to ourselves like a troll on the internet, like we're practicing hate speech inside of ourselves by saying like, what the hell is wrong with you? Get yourself together, blah, 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 blah. Like, you're so wrong, you idiot. You're so stupid. We talk to ourselves like this instead of talking to ourselves with curiosity,
Yeah.
gentleness, compassion, the way a friend would talk to you if they did disagree with you, if they could maybe see some holes in your belief system or ways that might be harming you unintentionally. A good friend would be like, that's so interesting that you see it that way. Who taught you that? Where did that come from? How has this
Yes.
played out in your life? And so we need to talk to ourselves that way as well.
This friend in my life does exactly that. And
Mm-hmm.
I adore her for it, and vice versa. I speak to her, and same thing. She's like, oh, ooh. And it, like, you can see like the
Yeah.
light bulb go on of now they understand. Whereas again, some rando would not get through quite like that. Well, I want to go through those 4 ways, 4 questions that you rewire your brain with, and let's go
Yeah.
slowly. Let's kind of have a tit for tat as you go over them. So, what's the first one?
Definitely. Before we do it, I think we should probably pick an example of a belief
Okay.
because I think that would be really helpful. Have you had a belief that you've had to overcome in your life surrounding food, weight, body image?
Oh, a ton of them. I mean, let's go back to the very beginning. I thought saturated fat was going to clog my arteries back in the day.
Hmm.
So that freaked me out when I first started on the Atkins diet many
Yeah.
moons ago. So yes, that would be a good example.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe not like one that's like fact-based or scientific based, but like something that maybe like you were taught as a kid, like about the
Um,
world, about food and weight, being a
uh,
failure.
yeah, that your weight is the only factor that matters in your.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So my weight is the main measure of my health. That's the belief. Okay. So the first question is it true? And when you're asking yourself this question, it's okay to say yes.
It's
And
not now. I believed
right,
it, but I don't believe it now.
exactly. But at the time, it felt very true.
Yes.
So remember, when you're asking yourself this question, it's okay to say yes the first time because remember, your brain is giving you a ton of evidence through your brain's filter that yes, this is true. So, maybe another one would be like, I fail every diet I try. Is it true? Yes, because I have historical evidence of that being true. Okay, so it's okay to say yes. And then the second question would be, can I absolutely know that it's true? So can you absolutely know that weight is the main measure of your health?
No.
No, it might not be. science sometimes has failed us. Sometimes we're learning new things every day. Maybe it's not the only measure of your health. And then your brain might start to think of examples of how might that not be true. So at that point in your life, did you have any other examples of maybe that not being true, that there was evidence that there were other factors that contributed to health? Like,
I mean, there's so many things. Genetic. I had seen family members struggle with the same issue, but then are healthy, and then other people struggle with the same issue with weight, and they were unhealthy. So you had
yeah.
kind of a dichotomy of evidence.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems baffling sometimes that, like, here's this guy in his 40s running marathons, eating vegetarian, all of a sudden he drops out of a heart attack. Like, we don't seem to understand. Now, maybe if we dig a little bit deeper, but on the surface, we're like, yeah, it doesn't really make any sense. Like, okay, Betty White, here she is eating hot dogs and drinking vodka every day or whatever. God rest her soul. But, that was so funny that that was like in the mainstream, because here she was. She's just like, I'm just living my life. I'm doing all these things that people tell me not to do. And here I am. I'm like, I'm healthy. I'm thriving. So yeah, as soon as you start to ask yourself those questions, though, that's when it loosens it. And then you can start to think of examples of like, oh, maybe that's not the ultimate truth. By the way, I need to give credit where credit is due. These questions come from Byron Katie. She calls this the work of self-inquiry. So again, the first question is this true? The second question is, can I absolutely know that it's true? The third question is, how do I think, feel, and behave when I believe that's true? So when that belief was running your life, Jimmy, how did you think, feel, and behave?
If I didn't lose weight, I had failed. If I didn't lose weight, I was a moral failure.
Yeah.
There was something wrong with me. And I even had that reinforced by like doctors. Well, you really need to lose weight. I'm trying. Well, you need to try hard. So it felt like the weight of the world was on me to get the weight off if weight was the only thing that mattered in my health.
Yes, totally. And then the fourth question would be, so that's just realizing, here you are seeing the harm, right? So you're seeing how this might not be serving you when you ask that question.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fourth one is, who would I be without this belief? If I didn't believe this, how would I think, feel, and behave?
Right.
What changed when you let go of that belief? How did you think, feel, and behave?
I got happy. Like
Yeah.
I'm there now. Like and excuse the language, but I don't give two fucks about what people think about my weight anymore. I live free, and I also start focusing in on all the other things that actually matter when it comes to my health. Not that the weight doesn't, but that it's not the obsession that it once was.
Right, right, absolutely. And so once you can realize the benefits of who you might be without that belief, we start to feel a little bit more safety inside of ourselves. Maybe the reward is worth the risk. Yeah, it's going to be scary to let go of this belief. What might that mean? Okay, if weight wasn't the main way that I measured my health, oh, maybe I wouldn't step on the scale as much. Ooh, that gives me a little bit of anxiety. So there are some risks and there are some ways that it would change our behavior if we were to let go of that belief. But there's also a lot of rewards. And that sounds really attractive. That sounds really interesting. That sounds really freeing. Oh man, for those of us who are believers, like one of the things that I like to share with people the most is where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom. If you're getting a sense of freedom, oh man, follow that trail, baby, because that's where you're supposed to be. And so it sounds like letting go of that belief brought so much freedom to you.
And,
And
and peace and hope. Like
yeah.
I was always so hopeless when I
Mm,
thought weight was the only measure of my health. And when I stopped looking at that and started quantifying in other ways, it was just so invigorating. It made me want to do the healthy habits even more. Whereas the other belief got me discouraged. And it's why it was on a diet, off a diet, on a diet, off a diet, on a diet, off a diet, so many times. Whereas if I had just had the belief I have now after going through those four questions that you just talked about, I would never get off because I'm always pursuing health because I see it in other ways without the prism of just the weight.
yeah, absolutely. And so remembering though too, at the time that you held that belief, remembering through a lens of self-compassion where you got that from. Like you didn't make that up. Like you never really chose to believe that. It was just kind of drilled into you through like the science books, the textbooks, the health class, whatever your parents told you, whatever your doctor told you, right? And so you didn't choose that belief that was harmful to you. So we got to have a lens of self-compassion of where this came from. I didn't ask for this, but here are the detrimental effects of it. And now here I am an adult and I get to choose. Do I actually want to hold on to this belief or not? I get to choose, And so also through the lens of self-compassion, realizing that there's a reason why you held on to it for so long. There's a protective part of you that created it was a sense of safety that it gave you in some way, shape, or form. I'm safe as long as I'm at this weight. And then if I go past this, it's the danger zone or whatever it might be. I need to stay alive. And everybody's telling me this is how I stay alive. Like, I don't want to get sick like so-and-so. And, this so-and-so weighed this. So therefore, the correlation is not causation. And so we need to, again, just have that lens of self-compassion for ourselves that we didn't choose this belief and it has served us in some way, shape, or form to hold on to it so that we can almost bank it before we let it go. It's not the enemy. It's been an important part of our journey. There's been a lot of things that I believed in my past that I don't believe anymore. Yeah. And you kind of go through a grief process and you kind of go through a process of like, disgust, like, I hate that past version of myself. But to be able to actually make peace with it and realize, had I not had that belief, would I be doing this today? Would I feel the freedom that I feel today? We can bank it.
Well, and beliefs, I believe, Jess, are stepping stones to the next belief. I think we feel like whatever we believe today, we're always going to believe now and forever. And you're not growing if you do that. I think what you believe today is based on the experiences in your life up to this point, the knowledge that you've accumulated, the influences you've had in your life. That's what a belief is today. And 10 years from now, and 10 years ago, far different than I was 10 years ago. And 10 years from now will be even far different than I am now. And I think I'm in a pretty good place now. And so that people have to stop fearing the changing in the belief because it's as much a part of life as you breathing another day.
Yes, yes. And remembering that changing your beliefs is not the same thing as changing your core values. So your core values stayed the same the whole time. You valued physical health as an expression of using your life for God's glory, right? And maybe that's something about you that has never changed the whole time. It's just that you let go of the parts of the beliefs that were just kind of like inseparably holding you back, right? And so a lot of times beliefs, they're optional. And if they're a source of suffering, you're the only one who's, co-signing on that suffering. We can acknowledge that. Okay, I'm going to take responsibility for that. I'm going to, from an empowered place, I want to change this. And so then how do you actually change it? Now that you realize you want to change it, you practice a turnaround statement. What is the new belief that you attached yourself to that you realized would be a more helpful story? So what do you believe now is the measure of health? Or how did your view on weight change?
I don't weigh myself anymore. I wake up with a positive mindset that, hey, I'm doing healthy choices. I'm getting in a freaking ice bath every day. So I'm doing something that most people would never do that's making me mentally stronger. And that to me is an important part of health that I never valued before. It was all about the physicality and how I look. So I'm more interested in kind of the mental aspects, the brain enhancing, the inflammation lowering, which losing weight would help with. And obviously all of these things, hopefully someday will make that scale start to move. I won't know because I'm not stepping on one. So in the meantime, just keeping a positive mindset about everything while I'm working on all these other parts of my life.
Yes, absolutely. And so maybe your turnaround statement is, while I pursue health from a holistic point of view, weight loss will be a natural side effect.
Yeah.
It's not the measure of health. It is the natural byproduct of health. And it takes time. Yeah. And so what we want to do is we want to create an affirmation, we create a turnaround statement. We try on the opposite. And, so instead of my body is fighting me, actually my body is serving me. How does that feel? Instead of, I failed all the diets. No, the diets all failed me.
Yes.
So we practice a turnaround, practice the opposite. How does that feel? Right. I was working with a client who basically was saying, I just want to live a normal life, or like this idea of why can't I eat normal and just be skinny like everybody else? Yeah. And her child was having some health complications, and, God bless her holistic health practitioner was like, you got to get sugar out, and so now here she is getting some leverage because her child's health is now on the line, and it's going to benefit her and her child and everybody in the family to get sugar out. But here she is still wrestling with, I just want my child to live a normal life though. And so we explore, is it true? Is that a normal life? Is that a normal way to eat? Actually, no, it's not. Compared to the course of human history, it's not. Is it true that everybody else is skinny? No, 2 out of every 3 people are not at a healthy weight, And so is it true? Absolutely not. And how do you think, feel, and behave? Like, okay, so we realize the opposite is that I do eat normally. Everybody else eats abnormally, right? Or we realize what I'm really saying is I want to eat common foods, not normal foods. That's what we're actually saying. And so I was able to ask her, like, well, every time you feel like I want my child to live a normal life, maybe you should say, do I want my child to live a common life? How does that feel? Because that's what you're actually saying when you're saying, I want my child to eat common foods like everybody else. It's not to live a normal life. In fact, your chance of your child living a normal life, as far as like optimal brain function, optimal health, optimal functioning in society, all of these things, that's a normal life. And the only way that that's going to happen is by eating abnormally, which is really eating normally, if you look at the course of human history.
Funny one is when people say, oh my gosh, I can never have carbs again. And I'm just like, but you get steak and
and bacon and butter and
bacon. And it's like, those are forbidden on every diet but yours. And then they're like, oh yeah. So you can make it a negative or you can make it a positive. I can never have, or look what I get to have.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or, keto is true restrictive. I like to use the word boundaries instead of restrictions. I practice boundaries in what I eat the same way that I practice boundaries of self-care in the rest of my life. I have high standards across the board for my own self-care. And so shifting from restrictive, restrictive kind of implies that somebody else is telling you what to do. A boundary is something that you set for yourself to keep yourself safe, to make your life better. And so when we change our language, we change our perception of the situation. And so once you've created kind of an affirmation statement, then you got to repeat that like crazy. You got to practice that every day, put it on a sticky note, put it on your mirror, incorporate it into your morning routine, say it when you're on your drive, whatever, write it in your gratitude practice every day, rehearse. And it's okay when the old belief rears its ugly head. It will. I've done so much work on myself. One of my limiting beliefs has always been, I should have known better. Whenever I make a mistake, that pops into my head. I should have known better. But in the past, that thought would, first of all, pop into my head, and then I would believe it, not question it, and then spiral out for days or weeks at a time, right? Now that thought pops into my head and I realize I am not that thought. Who does this thought sound like? Sounds a lot like the perfectionist, authoritarian caregivers that I had. Okay, that's not me. I didn't choose to have that conditioning. I'm the wise, compassionate observer of my thoughts. I'm not my thoughts. I don't have to believe this thought. And then I will take it through the 4 steps. Is that true that I should have known better? No. How could I possibly have known better? I've never gone through this situation before. And so I'll practice this with myself all the time. But I just want to remind people that it's not like you're never going to have that thought again, even when you do this belief work. It's just that you're so much less attached to it and you know how to recover from that much more quickly.
This was some good stuff today, Jess. Thank you so much for being here. Jess Reid is her name, you guys. The Keto Fit. And she is a keto coach. Definitely has a lot of life coaching, as you can hear from her voice here today. Click on the little link tree. Takes you to all her stuff. You can get signed up for her next class, get info. You've got all kinds of both information about keto, but also a lot of mindset stuff. She also own podcast called Self-Care Keto Podcast. So check that out. And I know she would love to hear from you. But Jess, thank you. It was a pleasure to have you back here today for another jaunt, another mindset deep dive. We need a lot. Something tells me you'll be back again sometime.
Oh, I would love that. Jimmy freaking Moore. I'm so floored every time I get to talk to you because you were like a celebrity to me when I first started eating keto. And I remember the first time you talked to me on Clubhouse, I was like, who is this kind, nice, just real person? You called me after we talked on Clubhouse. Like, you guys, Jimmy's the real deal. I'm just so grateful for you. Thank you.
Wait is almost over. The One Step Deeper journal, The Foundations, written by Jimmy Moore and Brittany Davis, is set to release any day now. Head on over to onestepdeeperjournal.com and type in your name and email address, and as soon as it's available for purchase, we will let you know. onestepdeeperjournal.com. Did you go keto and thought you had to give up wine? Well, let me introduce you to Dry Farm Wines. It is the world's first sugar-free alcohol that is lower than your typical wines, organic, made at local farms that do it the right way. Most of the wines that you buy are from 3 really big companies, loaded with additives and preservatives, so many dozens of those kinds of things. You don't want all that junk in your wine. So go to dryfarmwines.com/Jimmy and they will ship you these wines. And just because you listen to this podcast, Dry Farm Wines is going to give you a bottle in your first order for just 1 cent. Go to dryfarmwines.com/Jimmy and you will get your bottle of wine for just 1 singular penny. Go check them out. Dry Farm Wines, you guys. It's wine o'clock somewhere. Let's go get some wine.